Imagine waking up one day to find that the price of nearly everything, from your groceries to your car, has skyrocketed overnight. This isn't some far-fetched economic nightmare. It's the potential reality if Donald Trump moves forward with his radical plan to impose tariffs on imported goods. Whether you support him or not, this policy could reshape America's economy in ways we haven't seen in decades. Trump's proposed import tariff plan isn't just another trade policy. It's a complete overhaul of how America interacts with the global economy. At the center of his strategy is a universal 10% tariff on all imported goods. This would apply to products from China, Mexico, Europe, essentially anywhere outside the U.S. The goal? To incentivize American manufacturing and reduce reliance on foreign goods. But the potential ripple effects of this policy are staggering, and the consequences could go far beyond what most people expect. One major concern is how this would impact everyday consumers. History has shown that tariffs often lead to price hikes as companies pass on increased costs to customers. That means higher prices at the checkout counter, from electronics and clothing to cars and even food. Critics argue that this would function as an indirect tax on American consumers, hitting middle and lower income families the hardest. If a household already struggles to make ends meet, an increase in essential goods could push them further into financial distress. Consider industries that rely heavily on imports, like technology and automotive manufacturing. Many components for smartphones, computers, and electric vehicles are sourced from overseas. If companies have to pay higher tariffs on these materials, they will likely transfer that cost to consumers. Even U.S.-based manufacturers who assemble products domestically still depend on global supply chains, meaning the impact would be widespread and unavoidable. However, Trump and his supporters argue that the move will ultimately benefit the U.S. economy by bringing manufacturing jobs back to American soil. They point to previous tariffs imposed during his presidency, particularly on China, which they claim led to a resurgence in domestic production. But is that really the case? Some studies suggest that while certain industries saw minor gains, others, such as agriculture and retail, suffered due to retaliatory tariffs imposed by other nations. Farmers, for example, were hit hard when China responded to Trump's earlier tariffs by imposing duties on American soybeans and other agricultural exports. If similar retaliatory measures happen again, it could severely impact U.S. farmers who rely on international markets to sell their products. Then there's the international response to consider. If the U.S. slaps tariffs on imports, other countries could retaliate by imposing their own tariffs on American goods. This could hurt U.S. exporters, particularly farmers and manufacturers that rely on global trade. The last time the U.S. engaged in aggressive tariff wars, during the Great Depression, it contributed to a worldwide economic downturn. A modern trade war could also escalate diplomatic tensions, straining relations with key allies and trading partners. Nations like Canada, Mexico, and European Union countries might seek alternative trade alliances, further isolating the U.S. from global commerce. Additionally, global businesses that rely on trade with the U.S. could begin shifting their focus to other markets, weakening America's influence in global trade negotiations. Beyond the economic impact, there's also the political calculation behind Trump's strategy. As he eyes a potential return to the White House, this tariff proposal is clearly aimed at energizing his base, particularly working-class voters who have felt left behind by globalization. He's selling it as a way to restore America's economic independence, a key theme of his America First agenda. But will voters buy into it? While the promise of bringing back jobs resonates with many Americans, others worry that such an aggressive approach will lead to economic instability rather than prosperity. Many business leaders and economists warn that such a sweeping tariff plan could backfire. The U.S. economy is deeply interconnected with global markets, and any disruption could have unintended consequences. Something big just happened, and it could change everything. Donald Trump has just issued his strongest warning yet to Russia, signaling a major shift in his approach to the ongoing crisis with Ukraine. For months, Trump has tried to position himself as the dealmaker-in-chief, offering concessions and pushing Ukraine toward peace talks. But now, with Putin seemingly stalling and making new demands, Trump is running out of patience. The former president has just threatened secondary tariffs on Russian oil and is preparing for a crucial conversation with Vladimir Putin in the coming week. But will this new strategy work, or is Trump being played? Let's break it all down. In a recent interview with NBC, Trump made it clear that he's unhappy with the way things are going. When asked about Putin's latest remarks on Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, Trump didn't hold back. He stated that Russia's approach to Ukraine was moving in the wrong direction and warned that if Moscow didn't make a deal soon, it would face serious consequences. Among those consequences, secondary tariffs on Russian oil buyers, a move that could shake global energy markets and put pressure on Putin's economic stronghold. But Trump didn't stop there. He also sent a stark warning to Iran, threatening bombings and economic penalties if Tehran continues its nuclear ambitions. This aggressive stance marks a shift in Trump's usual rhetoric, where he has often praised strong leaders and played the role of the negotiator rather than the enforcer. So what's changed? Why is Trump suddenly ramping up the pressure? To get some expert insight, we spoke to Peter Dickinson, editor of Ukraine Alert at the Atlantic Council. According to Dickinson, this is a notable shift, but not necessarily an unpredictable one. Trump has long been known for his transactional approach to foreign policy. His initial strategy involved offering Russia significant diplomatic openings while pressuring Ukraine to make concessions. That approach led to Ukraine agreeing to an unconditional ceasefire just 3 weeks ago. But in the days since, Putin has done little but stall, push for additional concessions, and now even question Zelensky's legitimacy as Ukraine's leader. This latest move by Trump suggests he realizes Putin may be stringing him along and that his art of the deal approach isn't working as planned. The frustration is evident in Trump's latest statements, where he made it clear that he expects movement from Russia, and soon. But the big question now is, how will Moscow respond? Much will depend on an upcoming phone call between Trump and Putin, which is expected to take place later this week. Trump's diplomatic strategy has always relied on direct engagement with world leaders, and this conversation will be critical in shaping the next phase of U.S.-Russia relations. However, Dickinson suggests that Putin is unlikely to be fazed by Trump's tougher talk. Russia has seen this before, Trump making threats, then stepping back when negotiations resume. Moscow knows that Trump is eager to close a deal and could see this as just another negotiating tactic. And what about Trump's threat of secondary tariffs on Russian oil? If enforced, such a move could put real economic pressure on Russia by making it harder for Moscow to find buyers for its crude. But there's a catch. Trump's wording was deliberately vague. He said that he might impose tariffs if Russia doesn't strike a deal. That leaves Putin with room to maneuver, and the Kremlin may gamble that Trump isn't truly willing to follow through. For now, Russia seems comfortable with its position. It holds significant leverage over Ukraine and knows that Trump's influence is still limited when it comes to forcing Moscow's hand. Until Washington makes it clear that real consequences are coming, Putin is likely to continue his current strategy: stall, demand more, and wait for better terms. Meanwhile, the implications of Trump's shift in rhetoric go beyond just Russia. His hardline stance toward Iran suggests that he may be looking to project strength across multiple fronts, possibly in preparation for a broader geopolitical strategy. If he's serious about using military threats to curb Iran's nuclear ambitions, it could lead to further escalations in the Middle East, affecting not only Iran but also its regional allies. This would add another layer of complexity to an already volatile international landscape. Another factor to consider is how Trump's recent statements will play domestically. With the U.S. election cycle heating up, every move he makes on the world stage is being scrutinized. His base expects him to be tough on foreign adversaries, but at the same time, many Americans are wary of new conflicts or economic policies that could drive up oil prices. If secondary tariffs on Russian oil lead to higher energy costs, that could become a political liability. Beyond the immediate geopolitical and economic implications, there's also the question of how Trump's shifting tone might affect NATO and its allies. European nations, particularly those reliant on Russian energy, are watching closely to see whether Trump's tougher stance translates into real action. If Trump does impose tariffs or take stronger measures against Russia, it could push Europe to take a firmer stance as well, or conversely, lead to divisions within NATO over how to handle the crisis. In addition, China's role in this equation cannot be ignored. Beijing has maintained a strategic partnership with Moscow, offering economic and political support in the wake of Western sanctions. If Trump escalates pressure on Russia, China could be forced to make a choice. Either double down on its support for Putin or distance itself to avoid becoming a target of U.S. economic measures. This could have a ripple effect on global trade and diplomatic relations. So is Trump finally taking a harder line on Russia? Or is this just another round of posturing? The coming days will be crucial, and all eyes will be on that upcoming call between Trump and Putin. Will Trump's patience finally run out? Or will Putin find a way to drag this out even longer? If the former president follows through on his threats, the world could see significant economic and political consequences. If he backs down, it could signal to Moscow that it still holds the upper hand. One thing is certain, this situation is evolving rapidly, and the stakes could not be higher. As tensions mount, the decisions made in the next few weeks will not only define Trump's foreign policy approach, but could also have lasting effects on global power dynamics. Stay tuned as we track these critical developments, because this story is far from over.